So let's start with a fun one. And as Susan said, 25th anniversary of your win, 1991, here in Memphis. So Memphis has probably changed a little bit since 1991, but tell us your thoughts on Memphis. What do you think of Memphis so far?
Well, it's beautiful. Thank you for arranging the good weather. That's still a bit cold for me, but...
Because he's in Florida right now. He lives in Florida.
I'm used to the 85-degree days, but it's nice to see the sunshine. And it's great to be back in Memphis after so many years and at the Racket Club and so on.
What do you, I know it's been 25 years, but give us one memory that stands out for Memphis, because you played here twice, correct?
I played here twice, played in 79 as a 19-year-old and then in 91. And I remember we had actually trouble getting in 91 because the week before we played in Philadelphia and went home to Connecticut, and then we were flying in and couldn't land for a while because of the weather, but finally did it, and everything ended well.
And you won. So you've made your mark here in Memphis. Let's start. So you come from a tennis family. Your mom was one of the top players in Czechoslovakia. Give us a little bit of just your childhood and growing up in a family heavily focused on tennis.
Well, both of my parents played competitively in Czechoslovakia, so it was only natural to go to the club with them every day and enjoy the sport. The clubs in Czechoslovakia at that time were tennis clubs were very different than what you would consider a tennis club or country club here. We would have only tennis courts, so really there was nothing else to do than to play or do your homework. I know what my choice was.
And clay, right? Clay was the
red
court.
Red clay, that's all over Europe. Outdoor courts are red clay with the exception probably of England.
And talk about, so you grew up in an era where it was a wooden tennis racket, and obviously the game has changed dramatically, and even we were talking yesterday about the fact that now there's so much more knowledge on how to train your body. But give us an idea of just what you've seen over the years with how much tennis has changed from your childhood to today. What are some of the big changes with tennis?
Well, I think not just tennis, all the sports have changed with the training methods and understanding of nutrition and rehab and prevention of injuries and so on. And in general, I think the athletes have become bigger and stronger, better trained. And you can say in some sports it helps and makes them better, and in other sports it's getting kind of crowded, ice hockey being one of them. And that's why the 3-on-3 overtime is so popular right now, because there is a lot of skating, a lot of chances, and not many people know this, but I believe that on the break of 19th and 20th centuries, the hockey was being played 7-on-7 skaters, plus the goalies. And then they said, look, it's too many, the guys are too big, made it 5-on-5. And I think if you look at all the sports, they're trying to adjust their rules. They're trying to adjust how they score, how they have the rules because of the size and speed and skill of the athletes.
Well, you look at just the instant where you can challenge a call now. Would you have preferred that back in your day?
Yeah, I think McEnroe would be out of challenges after 5 points.
So that's a good transition. I know one of the questions yesterday, so we've taken him all over the city. He was out at Leftwich. He talked to tons of kids and parents there, did the ball in the 40th commemorative anniversary, the big wall mural, and then we took him out and he talked to the kids at the Junior Development League with USTA, and then we did a reception last night. So he's been all over Memphis. But talk about, they asked who were some of your favorite rivals, and you said, well, it's different with each surface, and also it's different with each kind of time period.
Yeah, obviously when I started playing, I played a little bit against Borg and a lot against Connors and McEnroe, and then the younger guys came in, Wielander, Edberg, Becker, and followed by Agassi, Sampras, and guys like that. So over 14, 15 years, you play a lot of matches against many guys.
So let's go back 1984. You're down 2 sets. You're in the finals of the French Open against John McEnroe, and you have an amazing turnaround. Talk about that match.
I'm 55, I can't remember. I'm sure many people understand what I'm saying.
Maybe, but what was it like? What was it like to play John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and some of these big icons that all of us grew up watching and playing? And
Well, obviously, just like any great players, they're very difficult to play against because they can problem solve, they can very quickly take advantage of opportunities which they create, or you unwillingly give away, and hopefully you can do the same thing to them and make less mental mistakes than they do, and that makes the difference in the end.
So out of Becker, Stefan Edberg, you were teasing yesterday about Brad Gilbert. You couldn't believe he won the Memphis Open. You were going to take a picture and tease him. Who were some of your just favorite people off the court in terms of getting to know them a little bit, just personality-wise? Which of those were some of your favorites?
Well, I think it goes to knowing the players. So obviously all the Czech players always hung together and traveled together if possible. You saw the same thing from the Germans or the Spaniards and French and so on. And then you also make friendships outside of that. And one guy I always have fun with, and we played a lot of practical jokes on each other, was Stefan Edberg.
So he was a practical joker?
Incidentally, he won here as well.
Yes, he did. He had the amazing kick serve. Talk about... So
I would call it annoying kick serve.
Annoying. Well, he said yesterday, they're like, well, who do you want to not play against? He's like, any left-hander, because growing up, there weren't many left-handed players. You didn't get to practice against them.
There were none in our club, and so didn't see enough left-handed serves to get grooved into it, and it always caused problems later.
So talk about practice, because Dave alluded to it, is you took practice to a whole new level. Even having the installers of the U.S. Open that did that court, put that court in so you could practice.
Well, let's make sure we understand why that's done. When you put a hard court down, once you have the court, then you resurface. So U.S. Open resurfaces the final coat every year. And the speed of the court is dictated by how much sand they put in there. So if I get another company to come in, my court is going to be different speed. If I get the same company with the same crew to do it the very next day, they remember how much sand they put into that top layer, and my court should be pretty much the same speed, and it did work.
Do you hear that, business leaders? The attention to detail? I mean, that's...
I call it common sense.
There you go. But talk about that aspect. I mean, even yesterday, one of the kids asked, what's the secret to success? How do I win? And you said, well, how hard do you practice? So practice, talk about just the number of hours, the time spent, your focus on practice.
I mean, once again, how good are your grades in school? Well, how much do you study? That's a big part of that, and preparation in practice is the key to having a chance to succeed. It's not guaranteed that you will, but you give yourself the best possible chance.
Talk about the strategy, because at first I know it was a slice backhand. You learned to go to a top spin, a one-handed backhand that really was instrumental in beating McEnroe in 1984. Talk about just your focus on maturing your game, physically, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's you always as a player want to get better, and you have to see why is it you're losing matches. You have to be able to analyze. And once you do, then you have to say to yourself, okay, can I improve that, or that's not going to happen? Or is it worth improving, or should I focus my energy and time on something else? And I always, even as when I do some coaching, I like to identify 3 biggest weaknesses and focus on them. Because even for a tour player or a 16-year-old young player, I don't think they can work on more than 3 at a time. Because if they work on more than 3, then you're not putting enough time into really improving that weakness. And after 3 months, 5 months, whatever, you look at it again, you evaluate again and say, okay, this weakness is gone, we will keep feeding it a little bit, but we focus more on something else.
Talk about, as a professional player, it's amazing, as a recreational player, you walk up to hit a serve, you have somewhat control over your serve, and you think, I'm going to go out wide. The percentage says it's going to go down the line. I can slide over. So you might be 1 or 2 steps ahead. College players think about 4 or 5 shots ahead. When you walked up to hit a serve, what was going through your mind?
Well, pretty much the same thing. As long as I could execute every thought I had, I could be 7, 8 shots ahead. And people always say, yeah, well, he anticipated that really well. Well, that's a little bit like chess, but you have to execute everything perfectly. The moment you don't, tables turn.
So after your playing career, one of the other highlights, you coached Andy Murray, who went on to win Grand Slams. And talk about switching over from a player to a coach.
Well, there has been quite a few years between me playing and me coaching, so I don't think it's a switch. I think it's just coming back to the game with the experience I have had and trying to help somebody who is trying to get better.
And talk about just working with him, and was it one of those where it was a highlight to see him win a Grand Slam after so many years of Great Britain not having one, and as a Scot, that tie, or just kind of or more business? What was it like?
Well, it's always satisfying if you set to achieve something or help somebody to achieve something, and it happens because you have achieved your goal. As far as Great Britain after so many years, that's all written about. It's all very nice, but that's not what you think about when you're trying to help him win.
So give me, just personally, being a tennis player, being a celebrity, what was a favorite moment in terms of someone maybe that was famous that you got to meet, or just kind of the celebrity side of tennis? What's a fun story? I know you've kind of shifted away from press releases to go play golf. I've heard some funny ones where it's like, I'm just going to go play golf now.
Well, it's always better to play golf than talk to the media. Are you kidding me? I mean, everybody knows that. The only people who don't understand this are the agents.
Yeah, that's very true, yes.
There is something wrong with them.
Jerry was saying, that's why I've got all the gray hairs. He just goes and plays golf. But give me one, what's a fun story or fun person you met?
Oh, there are so many people you meet playing, whether it's during Wimbledon or Australian Open. But a neat story actually was when I started working with Andy. We're in Australia and we're practicing on court 16, and 3 sides of the courts are blocked off, and on the final side there is maybe 300, 400, 500 people watching. And I'm walking around the court talking to Andy. All of a sudden I hear in Czech, "Mr. Lendl, do you have a minute?" I said, without looking, I go, "Yeah, I will be there in about 5 minutes when we finish." So we finish, and I go there to talk to the person, and he introduces himself, and immediately I recognize the name. I said, "Well, are you related to?" "Yeah, he's my father." It was a 37-year-old hockey player who married an Australian girl and played hockey for Australia from my hometown, and his father was my hockey hero who played for our home team.
Oh, wow.
And I used to go and watch him. So, a lot of funny stories like that. I think it's really neat.
Talk about, one of the interesting storylines is being from Czechoslovakia, though, but now you're a U.S. citizen, 1992. You had played in an exhibition match in Africa, in South Africa, I believe. And it was because of that, the country kind of said, hey, we're not going to allow you to become a U.S. citizen yet. And I think this was in 1988. It was tied maybe to the Olympics. But later, obviously, you were able to become a U.S. citizen in 1992. Talk about just kind of that side of becoming a U.S. citizen.
Well, I just, like everybody else, I went through the process. You go apply for residency, that takes 2 years. Then you apply for citizenship, that takes 5. So you go through the process, and it just fell on 1992. And
share with us a little bit about what you're doing now, because right now, not only are you playing a lot of golf, but you're also, too, you're working with some of the top juniors in Florida.
Yeah, I work with a group of 16-year-old boys, 99 year of birth, and a couple of them, one 2000 and one or two 98. They are in the USTA program, and I'm involved with that group for the entire year. So we do some training. I watch them play matches, talk to them, trying to help them to get to the next level.
What is the future hold when you look at tennis right now in America, American players? Obviously, you're seeing some of the top juniors right now. What's your outlook?
Well, I think it's going to get better. It takes time. USTA has done a very good job with the girls. They produced girls in last 2-3 years. They started coming through. It takes a little longer in the boys, but there is a lot of young players who have potential. Whether they will fulfill it, whether they will be number 1 or number 25 in the world, it's hard to tell. But there is a bunch of them, and I think in the next 3-4 years you're going to start seeing some American players again.
What was interesting is yesterday when we were talking about the training, he said, you wanted to have them train 3 hours or more, but their body couldn't handle it. Talk about just that aspect of down to the body science of these players now.
Yeah, it's obviously you cannot load bodies when they're not developed. So what I had in mind, I had to adjust once I saw how they're handling it, because you can really hurt them, and physically, which is not good. And we have a good conditioning guy, and he believes first you do joint stability, then you do joint mobility, and then you put the muscle on. If you do it in reverse order, you just ruin the joints, and you have a lot of injuries. So just have to be patient. It's not something I like to say, but we have to be patient.
And talk about your family, because once again, Dave alluded to, you've got 5 daughters, 3 of which played golf in college. One was a rower, another one was an equestrian. And give us an idea of just what it was like for them, especially you being a professional athlete. Talk about kind of the mindset of working with your children at a young age and seeing them excel in those sports. Well,
first I'm going to take a little issue here with Dave when he was talking about the girls becoming better golfers than me. Dave still undefeated.
Daddy still wins, right?
It does not count until they beat me from the same tees, okay? So let's get that straight, okay? I always, when they got better and they were good juniors, they would say, oh yeah, I beat you. I said, what do you mean you beat me? You played half the golf course. and so then one day we go to a breakfast meeting where a lady, PGA woman from Connecticut, Susie Whaley, who is probably going to be the next PGA president, was giving a speech, and she qualified at the Connecticut PGA Championship to play in the GHO in Hartford, but she played shorter tees. And they changed that rule that now if you want to play with the men, you have to play the same tees. And so she's giving a speech, and the girls knew her because we played at her course many times in tournaments and so on. And so my 9-year-old, who we call Crash, as Susie says, yeah, well, you know, people kind of look at it funny, but I earned it. And it was fair and square. And my 9-year-old says, Mrs. Whaley. Yes, Crash. My daddy says it doesn't count until we beat him from the same tees. So it was time to leave.
Exit stage. So give us a proud moment. You as a father, seeing them excel in their sports, what's a proud moment that stands out for just you as a father?
Well, just keeping them out of trouble. You know, the teenagers can get in a lot of trouble, and I think kids doing sports is just brilliant because it gives them something for lifetime, hopefully. Tennis and golf are brilliant sports for that. They're probably 2 best sports, because if you play soccer in college or basketball in college, when you're done with college, where do you find 9 other girls to play basketball? It's very difficult. Or soccer. And tennis and golf, you need 1 other person and you can go and do it. So that's great. And they were, you know, they have won a lot of tournaments, so it's always nice to see them win, that their work is paying off. And one of the weirdest moments, actually, which if you put it into a movie, everybody would say, nice story, but it could never happen. I went to watch them play college golf one time in Bradenton. They played for University of Florida. And after 2 rounds, it's a 3-round tournament. One is leading and one is tied for second. And they're in the last 2 groups, and they're playing. And one of them has a bad middle of the round, and then all of a sudden catches on fire, makes eagle, couple birdies. And her older sister is group ahead of her and hits a 5-wood on the last hole to about an inch of the cup. And I'm walking between the 2 groups. And I know that it's for eagle, but her sister doesn't know that, because as she comes around, she already marked the ball. For some reason, she didn't just tap it in, but marked the ball. So her sister hits a tee shot in the fairway, and the older one goes and taps it in for birdie. Now she's leading by 2 shots. And her sister thought, okay, she chipped, marked it, and tapped it in. And her sister hits a 4-iron, and I'm standing behind the green. I'm the only one who knows what the score is. And their coach, about 5 holes before that, says to me, I wish they could both win, they're playing well. Her sister hits a 4-iron, and I'm standing, and as soon as it hits the green, I know it's going in, and it just rolls and drops in the cup, so they tied now for the win. I mean, I'm the only person there who knows what happened. because the one who was already finished knew about the bad holes her sister had, didn't know about the good holes. And the one in the fairway thought that she tapped in for par. So there is a little creek, coach and her jump over the creek, and coach says, so what do you think, Dad? I said, well, I think you got your wish.
They both won.
And now she froze, and the girls don't know what happened. And they say, what do you mean, Dad? I said, well, by my account, you're 4 under, and you're 4 under. Congratulations, you both won. And one says, that was for birdie? And she goes, yeah, you made some birdies there? Yeah. And they're both upset. I can't use the words they used when they found out. And so the moral of the story is, it's better to finish 22nd and beat your sister than tie for first with your sister.
But not if you're Dad. So talk about, I mean, you are a businessman now yourself. You collect art. There's all sorts of different things on that side. What has tennis taught you? I mean, obviously the preparation, the attention to so much detail. But talk about, because obviously you've got so many different business community leaders. What has tennis taught you?
Well, it taught me that Memphis is a great tennis town.
There you go. See, he is a smart businessman. But what would you say? I mean, for obviously you've got a lot of tennis players here, but raising children, encouraging them to play tennis, to grow the game, why is tennis so important?
Well, as I was saying earlier, tennis is a great sport. You can do it all your life. I think all the sports are great for kids with a couple of exceptions like boxing and all that, but I wouldn't have my kids do that. But just it prepares you for life. Sports prepare you for life. You know responsibility because you do well, you take the credit. You do badly, you have to take the blame, which you don't see too often these days. You try to blame somebody else most of the time. And it's just great preparation for life and what you're going to do on it. Teaches you hard work. Golf teaches you honesty because you have to call penalties on yourself. I mean, there is a fantastic example. Scott, can't remember his last name right now. Last year, PGA Tour player has won, and he wasn't feeling well. He went to his doctor, and doctor says, look, you know, you're low on energy. Why don't you go to GNC and get DHEA? Make sure it's not on the list for testing. So Scott Stallings is his name. And so he does use it without checking. Got tested twice, negative both times. He's in a meeting of the drug policy board, and they mentioned DHEA. He turned himself in right on the spot. And he was suspended for 3 months because they obviously thought that it wasn't intentional and so on and so on. But he was asked by the media, why did he turn himself in? And he goes, in our sport, you call penalties on yourself, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Last year in January at the Australian Open, Tim Smyczek is playing Rafa Nadal. 5-4 in the 5th set to Nadal, about 15-all. Rafa misses the first serve, and there is some disturbance in the crowd, somebody already drunk and yelling and all, and there was a long pause between first and second serve, and Rafa is ready to serve the second serve, and Tim Smyczek is, you know, ranked 140 in the world. He got a wild card in there. He has never won anything to speak of, yet he looks at Rafa and says, take 2. Would have been the biggest win of his career. Can he beat Rafa? And so this is what sports teaches you, and I don't think you can compare it to anything else.
Give us one bit of your favorite advice, either that a coach gave you growing up or that you've given as a coach. One bit of advice.
Well, Tony Roach taught me one time, don't ever second-guess yourself on the court. Because you're there, you have to make a split-second decision. And you make the best decision with what you know at that time and what you can process that quickly. You will make mistakes, but if you start second-guessing yourself, you're going to make more mistakes.
And then we're going to wrap up because he's got to catch a flight back. But give us, as a player, as a coach, as a tennis fan, why is it so important for Memphis to embrace the Memphis Open? Why is it so important for us? There's only 10 tournaments, professional tennis tournaments, left in the U.S. Why is it so important for us to embrace this tournament, to show up, to be engaged, to be a part of it?
I think there are many, many reasons for that. Number one, Memphis is a great tennis community. The tournament has 40-year history over there. So it's great that the tournament is staying here and hopefully can grow some as well. There are many towns and cities which didn't cherish their tournaments, New Haven in Connecticut being one of them. And those tournaments leave. Then you don't get to see the players anymore who play the tour. You get some exhibition here and there. But it's much better for the tennis community to have the whole tournament here. And so please support it and enjoy it as well.
Everyone, let's give a big round of applause for tennis icon, tennis legend, Ivan Lendl.
Thank you.